Welcome into the Awesemo MMA strategy shows. We're here to get you ready for UFC Vegas number 49, which goes down on Saturday afternoon inside the UFC Apex. Lock time on Saturday, 4 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to be here for the next hour, breaking this one down for you from the main event, which of course is a contract weight matchup of 160 pounds between Islam Makhachev and Bobby Green. Of course, we lost a fight yesterday. Hannah Goldie and Jin Frey pulled from the fight card. Hannah Goldie pulling out due to a illness. So we're going to break this one down for you. Of course, be sure to hit that thumbs up button. That always does help us out. It's a great way to show your support here of the Awesemo MMA guys. Here is, of course, as always, I am joined by the fighter Pete Rogers Jr. Pete, good Thursday afternoon to you. Man, it's another just some fights. Yeah. I'm just gonna say it, just some fights. But there's always a way for us to find a way to make some money on a Saturday afternoon.
For sure. What's up, everybody? Thanks for the support. Thanks for checking us out again. Last week was, solid, I would say, outside of planting my flag on Striegel. Little did I know I planted my flag in a pile of crap, but it ended up being an okay night for us. But yeah, man, I just wish that Striegel would have implemented some takedowns, and man, he looked terrible. But I'll chalk that up as a bad read. No worries at all. We're on to the next card, and we got some big cards ahead of us. So I cannot wait to break this one down, especially because of the main event. Bobby Green, my boy, cannot wait to hear your thoughts on it, and excited to see what the listeners are thinking as well.
Mentioned something about last week's card. I had Jonathan Pierce on my show yesterday, and I spoke to him actually yesterday afternoon. It was the final interview I did for the show. And he admitted that, basically his corner wanted him to stand up more and trade, but, kind of just got into the grappling aspect of it. Also admitted that did not have a great rehydration process. Which, those are things that as DFS players, we wish we might know a little bit more of, because, JSP did not go out there and get the score we wanted. So, I think it was 95 points he scored. Parker Porter to me was probably my most disappointing play of the day. Just didn't do the way we thought. But we move on to this week. Of course, we are sponsored by Prize Picks later on the show. We'll talk about some props that Prize Picks has over for the UFC card. Haven't seen any Bellator props. They didn't have any Bellator props over there. But man, if they do have some Bellator props on tomorrow, I'm looking at the prelims. Of course, the Bellator card is tomorrow afternoon, 4:00 Eastern time here in the States. Gegard Mousasi and Austin Vanderford. But we're here to break down UFC Vegas 49. Let's look right at the main event. Islam Makhachev taking on Bobby Green. Makhachev 9,500 over on DraftKings, 6,700 for Bobby Green. Of course, as we do this show, FanDuel salaries are not out yet. Look, I love this opportunity for Bobby Green. Pete, you look at his age, where he's at. Look, he gets a win. If he goes out there and shocks the MMA community, look, he's going to put himself right there in title contention. But as I think about this fight, and from a cash aspect, I think if you think Bobby Green can last 25 minutes, I don't mind getting to him in cash at 6,700. Going to allow me to do a lot of other things. But my general thought on the fight is he's got to keep his feet north of that black line. And for those who maybe don't understand what I'm talking about, if you look at the octagon, there's a black line. And basically in that small octagon, you're about a foot or two away from your back being against the fence. I think if he finds himself in that position, it's going to be bad news for him. That's why I just think he's got to keep this in the center of the octagon, and obviously he's got to keep it on the feet.
Yeah, it's an interesting matchup for sure, and this isn't going to be a cakewalk for Islam Makhachev, I don't think. In the grappling situations, yes, I think that Makhachev will have a significant advantage there, because we have seen, Bobby Green getting taken down at times, and a lot of people don't realize that his style, his origins are in wrestling. Like he started off, wrestling in high school, and that's really what got him into martial arts in general. So he knows how to wrestle. I would say that he's better offensively than defensively, and open mat defense, Bobby Green is pretty good. He can sprawl well. He can fight for underhooks, circle away, and get into a better position. Against the cage, it seems like somewhat of a lackadaisical defense. And that's where I think where Islam Makhachev can have significant success there. Like we've seen Clay Guida have success against Bobby Green and picking him up over his head. And Clay Guida is a tremendous wrestler, but I think that Makhachev's wrestling is just on another level. Now you bring into, you start thinking about jiu-jitsu, and I think that Islam Makhachev has one of the sneakiest, submission arsenals within the division. I think that his jiu-jitsu is probably, better than most of the division, to be honest. I mean, look what he did to Thiago Moises. And like, if you see, he has some similarities to Khabib, not so ground and pound oriented, more of a submission guy. And I'm excited for the fight in general. And I do think that Bobby Green's price is broken because of the 5-round potential. I'm going to get to plenty of him. And this could be a situation where in a 5-round atmosphere, even in a loss, he does enough to create, to find himself in that optimal lineup, given tons of high scores for 9,000 options and maybe some underdogs kind of, just laying some eggs and not really coming through for us. So cash games, totally agree with you. Bobby Green makes a ton of sense. Even GPPs, let's not like act like it's impossible for Bobby Green to go out there and knock him out. Bobby Green really hasn't found too many finishes outside of the Ally Quinta fight, but yeah, I'm still siding with Islam Makhachev. I think that the grappling is just going to be, in his favor. But like you said, you have to have exposure on both sides, given the prices.
And look, everyone loves Bobby Green. And here's a classic quote of why people love Bobby Green. This is on Monday's episode of the MMA Hour. Quote, I cut 25 pounds in 3 or 4 days. I want to show people I'm not crazy. I'm effing nuts. Get in there and do this S with the highest ranked guy in our effing division. I'm going to walk in there like a gangster and punch him right in his effing face. Like that's the stuff, like you see that quote, like you sit there and go, people love Bobby Green. I mean, the question, like we got a question over to score already about basically, does Green have the ability to get up ability? And if you believe he does, that does make Islam Makhachev an interesting angle. If he's able to, if this thing goes 20-25 minutes, he might have that ability to rack up a ton of takedowns. And one thing I want to mention, where you talked about Bobby Green and who he's fought. When you look at these fights that he's had over the past couple of years, not really going up against guys that are going to threaten the wrestling like Makhachev. I mean, you just look at Perez, Iaquinta, Fiziev, Moises, Patrick, Venata, Guida, Trinaldo, Close, Coke. I mean, you just kind of go down those lines over the past couple of years. Not a ton of guys where he's had to really get ready for a grappling heavy fight.
Yeah, and I'm not really sure that there are too many people within the division that can really get you prepared for Islam Makhachev. It's just a different level, and I think Makhachev has improved over the years. His striking defense has improved. Obviously, we all remember that he's been knocked out already within his career, and Bobby Green has some of the sneakiest striking and great boxing within the division, and he can get in your head. Now, a fighter like Bobby Green, if he starts to have success, then his talking could possibly frustrate Islam Makhachev, especially if he could run into some adversity there. And we haven't really seen Islam have to pull himself out from being under, like in a bad position or, in an inferior position where he's possibly losing a round. So how does he deal with adversity where, certain fighters are already tested, and Bobby Green's literally seen it all within the octagon. So I'm still siding with Islam Makhachev. I'm not as high on him as like a lot of people are. Like, I think that he's probably top 5 caliber for a very long time. But I feel like there are some stylistic matchups within the division that could definitely expose him. But I'll be siding with him, and I'll sprinkle Bobby Green in X amount of lineups just because of, even in a loss, he could do enough to possibly come through for us.
Of course, this is the also MMA strategy show. Of course, we're here to break down UFC Vegas number 49. Of course, if you're not also a Plus member, you want to get a little peek what's behind the paywall. Today's free premium data and tools are NBA player rankings and NHL player rankings. So you can check out that. Also, we got our podcast giveaway that is going on. Give us a 5-star review with your Twitter handle or Awesemo username. Where you leave a 5-star review on your favorite podcasting platform. It'll be entered with a free month of Also Plus Platinum. Also, we're excited to announce our new NBA props betting show, Locks Before Locks, which we've added to our daily schedule for 30 minutes before the NBA deeper dive show every day. Head over to the Odd Shopper YouTube channel for the best edges available on NBA player props straight from the experts here at Awesemo. So be sure to check that out. Of course, subscribe to us right here on YouTube. Hit that thumbs up. We always do appreciate that. Of course, the co-main event of this fight card is Misha Cirkunov taking on Wellington Turman. And this is, Pete, one of the fights that I think you have to prioritize for GPP just because of the likelihood of a potential early finish.
Yeah, for sure. And, Misha Cirkunov has been a guy that, has tons of success in round one and tons of, defeats within round one. And I do think that he's a cardio liability within the division. And I think that's kind of just how he is. He's a round 1.5 type of guy. Outside of that, the later time in round 2 and 3, he starts to struggle with his gas tank. And I don't believe that he's, an exceptional striker by any means. It's where the grappling where he's able to have a ton of success. And I think this is an interesting matchup because Wellington Turman, is coming off of a camp where he was preparing for Rodolfo Vieira, who's one of the best grapplers within the division. And you have Misha Cirkunov preparing for, a different opponent as well. And now that these guys are finally matched up just to basically get them both a fight, I think it's an interesting stylistic clash. And I'm actually favoring the underdog in Wellington Turman. And I just think it's an ugly GPP type of fight where anything can happen. Misha really succeeds and getting people to the mat. I think that he might struggle against Wellington Turman in doing so. And I think that Turman's kickboxing and jiu-jitsu is enough to keep him out of danger, at least for round one. This could be a situation where Turman, absorbs some strikes, gets taken down a few times, and then really turns the tide in rounds 2 and 3. So Wellington Turman for me is going to be one of the underdogs I'm going to get probably the most exposure to. I take that back, probably second most exposure to. There's another underdog that we'll get to that I really like this week. But yeah, Wellington Turman, training with Glover Teixeira as well. I just think that his preparation and his youth could be, in as advantage this week. So I'm picking Turman to win.
I was hoping you were going to mention that angle, the fact of he does train with Glover Teixeira. Of course, Glover did fight Misha Cirkunov back in 2017. It was a first round TKO victory there for for Glover Teixeira. This is, when it comes to, look, and when Cirkunov goes out there and he wins, it's going to be a first round finish. That's just the way he is. That's why price point 8,300, 7,900. Like you, I do want to take a shot here on the underdog in Wellington Turman. We'll see how well that looks there, but I do think that is a fight that we definitely have to prioritize. Next up, we got Kim versus Cachoeira, and this is one of those ones where for Priscilla Cachoeira, this is a fight that I do think is tailored more for her because she's not going to have to. At least I don't expect her to have to face takedowns because look, if you're taking on Cachoeira, the thought process is let's not stand with them. Let's take her down.
Yeah, for Priscilla Cachoeira, she wants to be in striking affairs, and her short stature within the division and just her dangerous knockout power has led to a lot of opponents just chaining takedowns together and trying to put her on her back. I will say that her striking defense is basically non-existent. Her hands never touch her chin. Her hands never come up to protect herself. She eats punches galore. And I think that could be a rough situation here against Ji-Yeon Kim, especially because there's a 7-inch reach advantage for Kim. And Kim's volume is pretty exceptional. I think she might even double Priscilla Cachoeira's volume within this fight. I expect this to be a 15-minute affair of them both landing shots. Priscilla Cachoeira has the power advantage in this situation, and she showed it when she knocked out Shayna Dobson and even Gina Mazzani, where, she can withstand some damage and she's got some heavy, heavy punches. I don't hate Priscilla Cachoeira at 7,600. I really don't. And in women's MMA, it's extremely volatile. And we saw that last week at Jessica Rose Clark, Stephanie Egger, and Egger looked good and came through and was a part of the optimal lineup. And this could be a week where if Cachoeira finds a knockout, she's going to be a part of the optimal. I just feel like Ji-Yeon Kim, I was watching her hit pads at Syndicate, and just seeing the footwork and the long striking of Kim makes me want to side with her a little bit more than Cachoeira's just reckless style. I think, that reckless style is going to bite her in the butt. One of these days, she's going to get planted on her backside, especially if she runs into a straight shot from Kim.
Mentioned about that, the statistics when it comes to striking, strikes landed per minute, 5.04 for Kim, 3.82 for Cachoeira. But the number that really sticks out to me, Pete, strikes absorbed per minute, 5.47 for Kim, 6.97 for Cachoeira.
You would imagine that would get inflated a little bit more because of the reach advantage that Kim does have in a situation with 7-inch reach. in a phone booth, Priscilla Cachoeira is going to land a ton. If Kim keeps her at the end of her punches, you would expect the longer, rangier fighter to have a little bit more success than a short-statured Cachoeira.
Dylan, I appreciate the comment there. Appreciate you checking us out here. I do want, before we move on to the next fight, do want to answer a couple of questions. And this is more game theory type questions here. First off, 1.6 says, how does your process change when you lose a fight card 12-11? For me, it doesn't really change much. Really where my thought process would change is if like we're going like we have 9 fights or 8 fights. That's when my game theory starts to change. And that's where you have to at that point start looking at stacking.
Yeah, I mean, I think stacking is fine. The main event is really, if you think it goes 5 rounds, the price on Bobby Green, and just given his fighting nature, I think that's okay to get to a little of exposure with that. The less fights we have, the more likelihood that stacking is going to be a part of the optimal, as you just mentioned. So I don't hate it. I probably still won't end up with much of it. I just feel like there's some good underdogs. And typically, if the underdogs are ugly throughout, that's when stacking becomes a little bit more viable.
Next question was, when do you start considering stacking if doing 10 and 20 lineups? Stacking, and for me, it's just a general game theory for me when it comes to stacking. It's got to be less than 10 fights.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, for 20 lineups, I probably want to do it just because I feel like you're really setting yourself up for limited success. And for 20 lineups, I feel like there's better ways to get unique.
Of course, if you are not a Awesemo Plus member, you want to get access to all the great tools and data we have at Awesemo.com. You got to sign up for Awesemo Weekly Pass. You can get that for $29.95, gives you full access to everything that we have over at Awesemo.com, including ownership projections, player projections, and so much more. And if you're just looking to play MMA DFS and you want to get an Awesemo Plus MMA package, they start as low as $2.95 weekly. And please note that Fantasy Cruncher is a add-on, so I highly recommend adding on Fantasy Cruncher to your account when you sign up with there over at Awesemo.com. It is how I develop all my lineups every day, and especially on Fantasy Cruncher with NBA, as I'm trying to figure out who's in, who's out of who to put in there. Sometimes that's why MMA is a little easier sport for me, just because I know once the fights are good, and you just hope that you don't lose a fight there. But let's move on to the next matchup that's a part of this card. That'll be Arman Tsarukyan taking on Joel Alvarez. Saw a line where Tsarukyan was off for the main event, but he elected to stay with this fight here.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That would have been interesting.
Yeah, I saw it was the other day I saw and mid that he had turned it down.
Wow. Well, that would have been kind of funny because Arman Tsarukyan in his debut, obviously this, debuted against Islam Makhachev and had some success, and it kind of threw us all for a loop. And like, damn, this kid's going to be good, man. All right.
Well, I mean, look, it's
smart business though. Yeah.
Yes. Look, it's a great opportunity for Bobby Green, but I think for a lot of guys, they sit there and say, what is the advantage of taking a fight on 10 days notice against Islam Makhachev? But Joel Alvarez here, a plus 180 betting underdog. What's your thoughts on the underdog here?
I like him. I really do like him. And let me tell you, I like a lot about both of these guys. I'm a fan of both of these guys, and they both have some things that I think can definitely exploit the other. So obviously Arman Tsarukyan, short stature against Joel Alvarez. Arman is only 5'7", while Joel Alvarez is 6'3". That is ridiculous, especially for 155 pounds. Joel Alvarez is basically a welterweight. He's humongous. 72-inch reach for Arman Tsarukyan, 77 for Joel Alvarez. So not only is he taller, he's longer too. So and I think the clear game plan for Arman Tsarukyan is to close that gap and take Joel Alvarez down as much as you can. And Joel Alvarez really hasn't had the best takedown defense at all. And, he almost accepts the position because he's so comfortable off of his back. And that's why I feel like you need to have exposure to both of these guys. 9,100 for a guy with tremendous takedown upside and Arman Tsarukyan is extremely appealing. He has not been the best DFS guy. He has had a strong performance in the past, but if this does go the distance and he has limited, strike output and it's just several takedowns and control time, given his price and how the other fights go, he might not pay off, but he needs to close the gap because on the outside, I feel like he could actually get knocked out against Joel Alvarez, to be honest. the long strikes of Joel Alvarez and, the elbows against Thiago Moises, that was something new that we saw, and he looked amazing with it. His knees up the middle, I think could, make Arman Tsarukyan a little hesitant. So given the price point at 7,100, I really do like Joel Alvarez. Now, I'm going to have tons of exposure to both, but I'll obviously lean a little bit more to the underdog just because it allows me to get a ton of flexibility within my lineups. And I do feel like the length might be a problem. Like, it's not just a little bit. We're talking 5'7" against 6'3", and they both have been KO'd in the past. And I feel like Joel Alvarez could make Arman a little hesitant about the takedowns because of his submission acumen, but also because of the length and the knees up the middle.
Yeah, I think it's going to be one of those things. If they do have a stare down tomorrow at the weigh-ins, which I mean, it's an Apex show, so
yeah,
usually they do bring the main card guys up to do a stare down. Yeah, that size difference is going to be noticed, and I think that's going to catch a lot of people's attention. That's why I've got a feeling I think Alvarez is going to be a popular underdog on Saturday.
Yeah, I think that this week it's pretty obvious who the underdogs to target are, and they might be chalky throughout. But Turman's going to be a guy I think a lot of people might want to get some interest in. And I think that Joel Alvarez at 7,100, he's the low-priced guy that makes a ton of sense with actual upside and possibility of winning the fight. Like if he beats Arman Tsarukyan, like, okay, this kid is absolutely legit. And in his wins, he has tons of finishes. So when he wins, he performs really well, especially given that price range.
Next up, we've got a matchup with another Arman, as we've got Arman Petrosyan taking on Gregor Rodrigues. Rodrigues, the one thing that sticks out to you, you look at from a fantasy aspect, is his strikes landed per minute, 5.99. Of course, he's won back-to-back fights here. You look at Petrosyan winning his UFC debut over here. So, but another matchup where we have a little bit of a reach advantage for one guy. This time it's Rodrigues, as he's got a 4-inch reach advantage.
Yeah, so Arman Petrosyan is a really good striker, non-existent wrestling. And Gregory Rodrigues, pretty good striker, really good wrestling, really good jiu-jitsu. So this could be a spot where you're going to get a ton of points. And I feel like this matchup, there's no way that this fight doesn't make its way into the optimal lineup. I really like the upside of Gregory Rodrigues given his price point. I think that he can get tons of takedowns, because if you go throughout Arman Petrosyan's career, he does not know how to stop takedowns at all. And he gets back up, but he gets ragdolled again. And against a guy who has tremendous jiu-jitsu, I think we could see Gregory Rodrigues capitalize where other fighters were unable to. Now, with all that being said, okay, I'm going to sprinkle Arman Petrosyan in multiple lineups because he's my 4th favorite underdog on the slate. Gregory Rodrigues, even throughout his regional career, has been knocked down numerous times. And if Arman can get back to his feet and possibly land some shots, he could definitely come through at 7,700. So he's my 4th favorite underdog on the slate. It's just hard to go against a guy who's already had success at the UFC level and, getting a dominant win over Park, having to overcome some adversity, another win over Todorovic. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I like a guy who's battle tested within the UFC. So I will lean towards Gregory Rodrigues, but this screams GPP all the way.
Especially that price point too of 8,500, 7,700. That's usually a range that you look at, middle 8,000 range to get to. Of course, we are sponsored by Prize Picks. You got to check out their player prop tools they have over at prizepicks.com. Of course, and when you sign up, deposit, and play over at Prize Picks, you'll get 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum when you sign up over there at Prize Picks. You'll receive an email within 24 to 48 hours to redeem your free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Of course, use that promo code Awesemo for instant first match deposit of up to $100. Now, Pete, as I looked at the props over there, looking at the main event and co-main event, really like the under fight time on Misha Cirkunov at 10 minutes.
Yep.
The Makhachev 11.5 is another one that kind of stuck out to me. And it's a line that I almost want to see where it goes, but right now I would play the over.
I would agree with you. I think it might get stretched out a little bit more. Bobby Green's no slouch. He's just going to be at an extreme disadvantage in the jiu-jitsu department.
No, quite. Yeah. I mean, the thing is just can he survive those 10 minutes? When I looked at takedowns, Cirkunov, that number is 2. I will go less on that.
Agreed.
And Makhachev, it's 2.5. If you tell me this fight gets out of the first round, give me more. I mean, I would go over on that one. But if you think he's just going to get Bobby down once and finish him off, not. By the way, I did see a graphic. So the last time Bobby Green headlined a card was I forget what card it was, but they had the graphic from the broadcast and it said fighting style hood.
I love it. I love Bobby Green. And I'm happy that he's getting some shine, but this is an extremely difficult matchup. And I would say more on that takedown prop. I expect Bobby Green to work back to his feet as he has done throughout his entire career. And he could get ragdolled throughout. But as this fight goes on, I would actually say that I will start to lean in the Bobby Green direction just because of the volume and the possibility of Makhachev not really having the best cardio.
And my advice when you're playing over Prize Picks, if it's early in the week and you find a prop you really like, you got to take advantage of it early because that number is not going to be there on Saturday. Some of these will change. So if you find one you like right now, I mean, for me, I would really lean on the 2 Cirkunov props I mentioned, the under 2 takedowns and the under 10 minutes of fight time. Those are the 2 that really stick out to me. So we'll see what happens in that matchup because I don't know if that thing makes it past 7.5 minutes, just being honest about it. Next up, you got Bahamondes and Rong Zhu. This one, to me, I feel like is a pretty easy one to break down, Pete, where I think if you tell me this thing plays out on the feet, you really like to favor in this one, Bahamondes. But if you tell me there's a lot of grappling in this one, I'm starting to look at the underdog.
Yeah, and I think that Rong Zhu will be a popular underdog at 7,200. It makes sense. He has a nice box score as well. And it was nice to see him rebound off of his UFC debut defeat and show some of those skills that we heard about. I really do feel like in this matchup, though, he could have an issue with the length. Again, we have Rong Zhu, 5'9", Ignacio Bahamondes, 6'3". And, again, this is another situation where the long guy is going to look to keep it on the feet. And Ignacio Bahamondes comes from a friend of mine's gym. Mike Valley Flow Systems, Valley Flow Striking. Ignacio has great striking. And you saw that, on display in his previous performance against Roosevelt Roberts. That spin kick was amazing. But in addition to that, I just think like the straight punches could be enough to frustrate Rong Zhu. And it's also just the takedown defense of Bahamondes. In his Dana White Contender Series fight, his opponent, Edson Gomez, went 0 for 5 in takedown attempts. There were no takedown attempts from John McDessie, but Roosevelt Roberts went 0 of 12 in their previous fight. So I think this could be a situation where the long, taller guy could keep it on the feet and just somewhat pick apart Rong Zhu. So give me Ignacio Bahamondes at 9,000. My only issue is if this just goes 15 minutes and there's not enough scoring, there are plenty other fighters that could definitely outscore Bahamondes, but I expect them to get the win.
Yeah, I mean, I think and I like what you said there about Bahamondes, just basically piecing him up. I will say this, one of the prop bets I do like is Bahamondes via decision, ranges anywhere from plus 150 to plus 165, depending on the sports book you're looking at. That to me is one of those props to potentially pay attention to in terms of this matchup. Let's move on next up to a female matchup, Nunes versus Pascual. Pascual making her UFC debut. I'm very familiar with her opponent in her last fight, Shamir Peshewa. This is a massive step up in competition. Let's just say this.
Okay. I didn't know where you were going with that.
I mean, look, I'm trying to be nice, bro. I'm trying to be nice. Massive step up in competition for Ramona here. I mean, massive step up in competition.
Yeah. Josiane Nunes might be one of my favorite fighters on the slate. I think that the price range, 8,900, the fashion in which she wins fights, she's extremely aggressive. She has that killer instinct that a lot of fighters don't really have. And that could actually work against you as time goes on, especially if you can't find the finish and you just really exhaust yourself. But we can't really hold that against her until we see it happen, right? Like, she just looks incredible. She hits really hard for the division. The Muay Thai is great. And I think that she might pick up a finish here at 8,900. Ramona Pascual, I think here at 7,300, a fighter I won't get to. I will not get to her. If she ends up pulling it off and wins, okay, I didn't get that correct, but I think the more logical and the most likely outcome is that Josiane Nunes just picks her apart en route to a finish as the fight goes on, because we have seen Ramona Pascual finish in the past. So give me Nunes. I think that she's pretty sneaky for the division. She's tiny and she packs a punch. So I like her going forward too.
The thing I will say about Pascual, also what you need to pay attention to is tomorrow on the scales.
Yeah.
She has not fought at bantamweight since 2019. Both of her previous fights were either at a catchweight or featherweight or north of featherweight. So that to me is part of, I want to see what she looks like. She is a fighter that is, you know, she got a late start in the sport. I mean, there's no question about that. I look at this and I just say, because of the huge step up in competition that from what she's competed against previously to what she's competing against Saturday, she will be someone that I will, when I do my crunches, I will tell Fancy Cruncher to limit her exposure 10% probably.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to have more than her than I will. I'll probably just, be okay with getting none.
And I'll tell people, I start running my crunches tonight. Basically, I have my thoughts on the fight, but I gotta hear what my guy Pete has to say, because sometimes we have a tendency, we can sway each other where all of a sudden you bring up something on the show and I'm like, oh, I didn't think of it that way, or vice versa. These are great conversations to have, but because what I do is tonight is when I put my pro plays in over at Awesemo.com. And so, there are some weeks I will tell you, Cruncher just likes to give me so much of one fighter that example of it, Cruncher was trying to give me so much Jay Perrin last week. And I was like, I had to go in there and just mainly say, I think I maybe set him to 10 or 15%.
Yeah.
Talk to Mario Batista this week too. It was kind of interesting. Probably the most interesting thing he talked to me about was how he dealt with COVID and how much it had affected him. And that was part of the reason he had been off for a year.
Yeah, man, I tell you, I had it and I still have some fighters that are coming back from it. And it still feels like it takes some time, man. It's like a blockage that just doesn't go away and you can't breathe. It's weird. I think going forward, we need to hire Jason and just have Jason interview every single one of these fighters so that we can get an even better read and use the interviews for our advantage. I know that Jason, if you haven't paid attention to his work over there at the MMA Report, he's constantly interviewing top level fighters and coaches and all this good stuff. But we need Jason to just do the cards, talk to every single one, and then we'll get the inside scoop.
But Pete, you know how this works though. They don't tell you this stuff before the fight.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
The reveals come once the fight's over.
That is true. And that's the problem with, picking fights sometimes is there are just so many underlying things that you don't know. How many fighters are going in, they're injured or sick or dealing with adversity within their camp, or, oh yeah, I trained with John Jones this whole camp. Oh, you did? Wish we knew that ahead of time. Some crazy things can always happen. And once they're revealed, it's like, wow, hindsight's 2020. It makes a ton of sense now.
That's why you really have to look at, go on their Instagram. And look, and literally, I will look at their last 3 months of photos, and maybe all of a sudden you see, hey, this guy's not at the MMA lab anymore. He's now at Fight Ready. It's happened a lot recently. A lot of guys that have made that switch. So that to me is always we talk about game theory. That's part of my game theory of looking at guys and saying, okay, all of a sudden, like we mentioned about Wellington Turman a little earlier on the show. The fact that he's with Glover Teixeira on a daily basis, that is something you have to think about when Glover has already fought him. So, it's just ways to look into it. But I will tell you, go and watch interviews, no matter who they do the interview with, because you might be able to pick some things up about what is going on in the train. Now, for me, my interview style, Pete, I want to have a conversation. Yeah.
I agree with you. Social media is kind of one of the final things that I look at, just to see the training partners and all that. And you can't always believe what everybody's going to say in an interview either. I mean, they have high hopes and, sometimes just say they're going to stick to a certain game plan and things do not go that way.
Are you listening to yourself?
Yeah, I knew you were going to do that. Yes.
I'm just not saying conversation we had all of a sudden fight night gets here. Whoa. What happened?
hey, when the opportunity presents itself, you got to capitalize. That's all.
I totally get you on that. Let's move on to the next matchup, because I believe this is going to be a fight that a lot of people want to kind of get your thoughts on, and probably going to be a fight that people are going to be looking at. It's a 7,800, 8,400 matchup over on DraftKings. Terrence McKinney, 7,800, and of course taking on Ziam here, who 8,400, a minus 125 betting favorite here. I mean, look, this is the ultimate question with Terrence McKinney is this: what happens if the fight hits the 201 mark in the first round?
Mm-hmm.
Do you like that? That to me is the ultimate question of, because he's had so many quick finishes in his career, what happens if this fight gets drawn out?
Bro, I swear McKinney had a fight since the Frivola one. I swear he did. And I was like, you know, I don't know if I had a dream that he just completely ragdolled somebody with his wrestling. But when I sat back and I went to the Tapology and I went to Sherdog, I'm like, dude, he didn't have a fight. He only had that Frivola performance, and then he hurt himself. And then, you know, I was like, oh my goodness. But
know why you're thinking that?
Why?
He was supposed to fight November. This was the matchup. His cornerman tested positive for COVID, so the fight was pulled from the card.
Yeah, no, I knew that, but I swear up and down, I saw him ragdolling somebody, and
you're dreaming way too much about MMA DFS.
See what I do for you guys? I'm so committed that I'm over here dreaming about outcomes, and you know, I do think that Terrence McKinney has the X factor in this matchup, and it's the wrestling. I think that he has power on his feet. And I think that a striker in Ziam is a guy that you want to have, you know, limited striking exchanges with, right? Like, you know, you want to make him respect your striking, but you don't want to get into a brawl with him, because the technicalities of Ziam's striking are just, you know, pretty crisp. He can pick you apart from the outside, good low kicks. I don't really think that he has like such devastating power, but he has sneaky knees for a tall, long frame guy. Terrence McKinney hits amazingly hard, but also can chain together takedowns. I'm worried about his cardio as this fight gets stretched out, but I really feel like, even though Ziam's a part of Sanford MMA and they have a room full of talented wrestlers, I think that Terrence McKinney could actually pick up some significant takedown city potential in this matchup. I really do. Ziam, even in some of his wins, hasn't scored well and has some not questionable decisions, but has been controlled and taken down and then gotten back up to his feet and started to, you know, sway the round back into his favor a little bit. But I think that might be a little bit more difficult in this matchup for against Terrence McKinney. I'm favoring Terrence McKinney in the matchup, 7,800. He might be my favorite underdog on the slate, and I have high hopes for him here in this matchup, despite how difficult it may be.
By the way, as I was joking with you about you dream way too much about MMA DFS, in my head I was like, oh, maybe he sleep talks. Well, someone in the chat just told me you do.
For sure. Absolutely. Bree will tell you that I'm always talking about fights, or I'm always just saying things. And next thing you know, I'm like, oh man, I was asleep. I was talking about the fights. I fall asleep watching fights almost every single night. Literally almost every single night I fall asleep watching fights. So
she's like, why does he keep saying exposures in his sleep?
Yeah, right. 20%. Yeah. Oh goodness. Yeah, but I can't wait for this fight. It's a good fight for sure. I'm just favoring Terrence McKinney. I think the wrestling is going to be the difference maker here. The power, the top control. I mean, even on Dana White's Contender Series, you did see Terrence McKinney take down Sean Woodson, who's a big guy. Yeah, he only scored 2 of 6 takedowns, but I think that throughout this time away from the cage, he's been able to make some adjustments, and he should be the favorite in this matchup, in my opinion.
Let's just say my wife has said to me on occasions, she goes, I think you do interviews in your sleep.
See, it's what you're passionate about, right? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's it happens, bro. It happens, man.
It does.
It's just like, I mean, it's no different than when I talk to these fighters and visualization comes up.
Yeah.
You know, of how you visualize a fight going, and just kind of relate on the point you were just saying about Terrence McKinney. I'm sure that him and his team there have been, you know, talk about the visualization okay, if he gives you this look, here's how we can attack the takedown. And like, you know, I mean, you can speak on this. I mean, it's just the fact of it, when you're in a fight camp, you think of 1,000 different things happening in the fight. And like, I can't tell you how many times I've had fighters say, like, it can really be a mind F, because you're thinking so much about the fight. And I've had so many fighters recently just saying to me, though, say like they found themselves like they've got to find a way to decompress. Otherwise, it just consumes your life.
Yeah. You start to think about every way you can lose a fight. And you start to think about every submission or shot that you can take that could end up resulting in you losing the fight. And then with that, you try to change that negative talk and try to say, okay, well, if that happens, how am I going to respond to it? How am I going to become victorious if I get caught in something? And, a guy in GSP, a legend, is somebody that basically said that. He says he visualizes losing all the time, but then he's coming back from that and, on the brink of defeat. And then he's finding a way to deal with that adversity and come back. And it's a tough game we play. But, I do like Terrence McKinney in the matchup. And outside of gassing out, I think that he should be the favorite here.
Sam, I appreciate your super chat. We'll get to you at the end of the show. We got still 3 more fights to break down before we get to your questions. We got Alejandro Perez and Jonathan Martinez. Martinez, 8,800. 7,400 for Alejandro Perez. Jonathan Martinez, unfortunately, he's been on the wrong way of a decision. Trains out of Factory X here. When I saw the price point earlier on today on DraftKings, I was like, that's a little pricey to get to Jonathan Martinez this week.
Yeah, a little bit. And I'm not really interested in this fight, to be honest. 8,800 for Martinez and, 7,400 for Perez, 2 guys that within a lighter division. Martinez found some success in knocking people out and, has good knees up the middle, sneaky kicks, good combinations. It's just been his aggressiveness has been inconsistent at times. Sometimes he's ultra aggressive, sometimes he's passive. And I think it's dependent on the matchups. And, David Grant had some success. And, since then, it was nice to see Jonathan Martinez kind of pick himself back up and get a win. But I don't know, man. I'm not really interested in the underdog Perez here at 7,400. I think at best he could sneak out a decision here. Working out of AKA, I think that Perez likes to strike, can land takedowns, but I don't think that Jonathan Martinez is bad in the takedown defense department. A little bit better than he used to be. And I'm favoring Jonathan Martinez in the bout. I just feel like this might get stretched out and go 15 minutes. I don't know. This could be the leverage play of the slate where it appears to be the ugly fight on the card that not too many people want to get exposure to. And we're all predicting it to go the distance. And somehow there's tremendous points galore and maybe a finish occurs. But if a finish occurs, I would like to think it's in Martinez's favor where he ends up knocking him out or catching him with a quick submission or something of that sort. But I'm picking Martinez in the bout, but don't really have much interest in this fight.
I mean, look, we talk about it every week of finding that higher end option, that option 8,800 and above, and saying, okay, who in that range is just not going to be owned? And I remember in my multiplier contest I was in last week, no one had Mario Batista.
I know.
Like to me, that's like the example of you got to find that. And this is where you use our ownership projections over being an Awesemo Plus member to your benefit of, I always say is look at that option 88 and above and say, who's under 25%, 30%? Where can you potentially find an angle on the field?
Yeah. I mean, it's the top options that appeared to be the best ones, Jonathan Pierce, being a little bit disappointing in that performance. And you had the lesser 9,000 options actually making themselves into the optimal lineup. And, before the fight card started, you probably wouldn't have projected that to happen, but it's MMA and anything can happen. So I don't mind getting to some of Jonathan Martinez. It's just my expectations are a little low.
Speaking of Jonathan Pierce, he told me he almost tapped.
Oh, he looked. Let me tell you what.
This is what he said to me. He said, he had me good. And he goes, I was on the verge. And in my mind, he goes, I had 2 thoughts. It's either tap or I'm going to go to sleep. And he said, you know what? He goes, I can't lose to a guy who stepped up on a couple of days' notice.
Bro, that opponent, Christian Rodrigues. Rodrigues. That kid is good. That kid going forward, we might have like a buy low situation where everybody's, maybe he gets matched up with some. That kid is good. That kid has really good striking, was piecing up Jonathan Pierce. And not only that, he has really good submission skills. The wrestling it's tough to really, criticize him because he's going up against JSP, who had a full camp. But Rodrigues going forward, somebody to pay attention to for sure.
Yeah, and looking maybe drop down a weight class. I thought that
Agreed.
the size difference you saw between those two guys.
But he almost did it regardless of that. It's crazy.
Yeah. That's the thing about these short notice replacement fights where fighter comes in, weeks notice, 5-6 days notice. Like it becomes a wild card type situation.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. They got nothing to lose. And, maybe not really having to cut so much weight that they normally do helped them. But, man, when you got that ace up your sleeve and you're coming in as the unknown, you can really throw off some of these favorites.
Yeah, and that's where it pays. It pays for you to really watch these regional fights, whether it's on Fight Pass or anywhere else, to be sure to check that out. Of course, one of the things that Pete and I love to see after the fights are over are those winning screenshots, and we want to see you get into the Awesemo Hall of Fame this week. All you gotta be doing is have that Awesemo avatar on your DFS profile. You get that over at awesemo.com/avatar. Tweet your wins at Awesemo HOF, and you finish in the top 3 of a contest over 5,000 contestants. You win a free month of Awesemo plus Platinum. Only one free month can be awarded per calendar year to a user. Congratulations to my guy Jordan Klein, who's my producer on the NASCAR shows, taking down 3rd place there in a NBA contest. Also, kudos to Timothy taking down 3rd in a NASCAR contest. I was doing really well in NASCAR until about the final 10 laps, and then all my lineups just went scrap. Also, congratulations to Alan taking down 2nd place in an NHL contest over there on FanDuel. CJ taking down $7,000. Kudos to you for what you were able to do there. And there also you see EMAC with what he was able to do there. Yeah, my NASCAR lines were looking really good, Pete. Really good, Pete. Of course, having way too much Denny Hamlin didn't help me out.
I know.
But man, yeah, I was final 10 laps. They're on that caution. I'm feeling good, bro. I'm feeling good. I'm like, because that's the point. I'm on the DK app at that point. Yeah, we get 10 laps to go. That's why I feel like I can really start looking at it. And I'm like, oh.
I'm on the DK app throughout the whole race. And
why do you torture yourself like that?
Because if I don't look at it throughout it, I'm never going to see green because I just have the worst luck. And,
no. First in NASCAR, I don't want to be winning money at the beginning of the race, middle of the race.
That's true too.
Because usually if that's the case and you're winning money like 20, 30 laps into the race, that line probably ain't going to go well.
The pit stops ruin my lineups. The second they go into the pit, my lineups just go, so I don't know. I can't wait. If you guys have not checked out Jason's show, working with Chris and what race sheets, I know him by race sheets. What's his Phil? Yeah, I know him as race sheets. Phil, they have tremendous work over there and got me, an MMA guy, into NASCAR. It's definitely fun. Something different to do on the weekends, and I enjoy it.
One of the things I will tell people, if you're a newbie to NASCAR DFS, just listen to Phil and Chris. And one of the things I always try to bring up with them on those shows is rules for Fantasy Cruncher. Like a rule that Chris brought up last week was going in the Cruncher, creating 3 groups. Drivers starting 1 to 12, 13 to 24, 25th to 40th. And that's things you can do in MMA as well. We talk about it all the time of create an underdog pool. Of sit there and who those fighters are going to be and say, hey, give me, 1 to 2 of these guys in every lineup. There's those things that you can do. So just kind of, you talk about game theory. Next up, we got Brahima taking on Gilmore, 9,300 for Brahima, 6,900 for Gilmore. Is there a path? Do you like Gilmore in the spot?
No, I don't. And I mean, I could see why some people might think like that Gilmore can have a shot here because they're low on Ramiz Brahimi because he didn't have the best performance against Court McGee. Let me tell you, Court McGee's a tough out whenever you have anybody going against a solid vet, just like how Islam Makhachev's going up against Bobby Green. You're going up against a veteran who's seen everything, and they have so much experience in all areas of the game. And, I think that Ramiz Brahimi, his best, skill set is his amazing jiu-jitsu. Like he's phenomenal once it's on the mat. It's getting the fight to the mat where he somewhat struggles. In the takedown department, he has some good takedowns in his back pocket, but if he could really, really develop that wrestling, I think that he could be an extreme problem for the division. Now, Michael Gilmore going up against Andre Petrosky. Petrosky not the best cardio. And you saw that even on the Ultimate Fighter. But what Petrosyan brings to the table is good pressure, good wrestling, and, some good jiu-jitsu as well. But I think that his cardio is a lot worse than Ramiz Brahimaj. And at 9,300, despite all the volatility surrounding Ramiz and how untrustworthy he may seem, I'm still backing the guy, man. Like when Michael Gilmore gets taken down to the mat, he just looks like a fish out of water and does not really do the correct things, doesn't really get underhooks well. He can defend some takedowns on the feet, but I largely view this as a Brahimaj inside the distance play. And at 9,300, I think that he can get it done within 2 rounds. So I like him here. He just needs to push the action quickly.
The opening fight of the card will be 2 Dana White Contender Series winners making their UFC debuts. You've got Victor and Carlos. This is your 8,200, 8,000 matchup. And this was kind of a scary one for me, two guys coming off the Contender Series.
Yeah, for sure. And it's like, lighter weight class. I don't really know how much I can trust either one of these guys. I will tell you that Carlos Hernandez comes from my friend Mike Valley, striking's gym as well. And, Carlos Hernandez has pretty good striking and okay wrestling. They both, Hernandez and Altamirano can get taken down at times and can get, controlled off their backs. So it's going to be like a kind of tit for tat type of competitive fight. And in a competitive fight like this, I don't really know if we're going to have a dominant side, but their price range is absolutely fine. 8,200, 8,000. They're going to make their way into my lineups just naturally because it just allows me a ton of, roster flexibility. I'll have to see how the ownership comes in, but I'm not trying to get to this fight too much. Like if I could just pass on the fight, this would be one of the 3 that I'm okay with getting away from, just because I think it's going to be competitive throughout. And I'll be siding with Hernandez at 8,200. But if you really want to dive into their records, Altamirano has faced the tougher competition. He has been tested throughout his amateur and professional career throughout LFA pretty, consistently, whereas Hernandez only had like 1, maybe 2 step-ups in competition. So it's Hernandez for me, but ever so slightly.
Let's finish up the show with our straight up fight picks. Plus, we'll get to Sam's super chat questions. Main event, I would love to see Bobby Green pull it off, but the brain says Islam Makhachev, and I expect him to win.
Yeah, Makhachev. I'm rooting for Bobby though.
Co-main event is Cirkunov and Turman. Give me the underdog. I'll go with Wellington Turman.
Yeah, give me Turman.
Kim and Cachoeira. I will go Kim.
Yeah, Kim.
Even though I do want to take some shots on Cachoeira and GPPs. Tsarukyan and Alvarez. I will go Tsarukyan.
Okay, I'm going Alvarez.
All right. Petrosyan and Rodrigues. I like Rodrigues.
Yeah, I'm going Rodrigues.
Bahamondes and Zoo. I will go Bahamondes, but concerned if the fight does hit Matt.
Yeah, Bahamondes.
Clearly, it's a Nunes play for me.
Yeah, Nunes all day.
I would go McKinney over Ziam.
McKinney.
I'll go Martinez. I think he gets the job done by decision.
Martinez.
I'll go Brahima against Gilmore.
Brahima.
And then I'm gonna go Victor. I'm gonna go the slight underdog getting in that matchup.
Okay, I'm gonna go Hernandez. And just one quick thing I want to say. Bahamondes, his main sparring partner has been Bilal Muhammad throughout this camp. So I definitely think that can help him in a situation against Zhu Rong.
All right, Sam, let's just start his over-under. He's going 6.5 on over-under finishes. I think that's a good number, Sam.
That is a good number, Sam. Good number, Sam. I'm going to say under.
God, I think it's right around that 6-7 number.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, I'd probably say under. But yeah, that's a really good number, Sam. Top 2 cash.
Well, top 2 cash, probably Makhachev, despite everything we said. And Josiah and Nunes, definitely.
Nunes would be my top cash play. Top GPPs.
McKinney. I think Brahimaj has some incredible first round appeal too.
Favorite inside the distance. To me, that is Cirkunov, Turman, Nunes, Pascual.
Yeah, I'm saying Nunes.
Upset or fade of the night. I mentioned I'm limit exposure on someone like Ramon Pascual. I will probably and not have much of Perez and Martinez.
Yeah, I might. Yeah, I agree with you. The Perez and Martinez, the price on Martinez makes me want to get off of that fight. I'm fading first fight in the night. A little underweight, I should say, not fading.
Armen Petrosyan may be the leverage play potentially of this card.
Yeah, I don't mind him. I tell you, if he's going to win, it's going to be a knockout and having to withstand tons of takedowns.
So that is going to do it for this edition of the Awesemo MMA Strategy Show. Coming up next is the NHL Strategy Show. So keep it locked. Here's the guys. Get you ready for tonight's NHL slate. Myself and Pete will be back here on Saturday for Live Before Lock, 3 p.m. Eastern time to get you ready for UFC Vegas. So have a great day, everybody.